This episode of the Adventure Jogger is brought to you by Ashley Sauls, Mary Moffett, Earl and Rena Philpott, and Crystal Pistol, and of course the rest of our awesome Patreon supporters and you, the great listener. Thanks for listening. The Adventure Jogger, a podcast about trail and ultra running. Meet fascinating runners from the front, middle, and back of the pack, sharing inspiring and funny stories about life and running. Running should be fun, and so should running podcasts. I'm your host, Steven Kornhaus, and this is the Adventure Jogger. Well, hello, everybody. Hope you're having a great day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are listening or watching the Adventure Jogger. Hopefully you're on a run, maybe getting some long run miles done. Hope it goes well, and thanks for taking us along in your ears. Today, my guest is not only a trail and ultra runner, he is also a mayor. So, yes, today the Adventure Jogger goes political. We have a political person, a political candidate on our podcast. We've got Tony Gross from, I guess, the Kingston, Tennessee area. So, welcome, Mayor Tony.
Hi, it's Kingston Springs, Tennessee, which can be confused with Kingston, Tennessee, which is actually out in East Tennessee. But yeah, so
Right.
yeah,
All right, cool. So,
it's good to be
Mayor,
here, though.
we're gonna have to get into, yeah, we're gonna have to get into that. Like, I'm curious how you got into the, politics and being a mayor and all. So, yeah, maybe give me a bridge version, a brief version of how you got into being mayor.
So I've been mayor now for 10 years. I've been on our city commission for 12 years, and my sentence, as I would say, is over in November. So no, we've got
Okay.
some great people that
Now,
are
are you
filling
running
in,
for
but
reelection?
I'm not. No, I figured 3 terms was good enough. But
Okay, I didn't know if there were like term limits in place.
no term limits. I could do it as long as I want, but I want to explore new opportunities. Some of them involve running actually, and the kind of the running community we have here, and those sorts of things. So.
Awesome. Okay. So, what's your most proud achievement as mayor of Kingston Springs?
Well, I think what we've done a lot of in Kingston Springs while I've been mayor that I'm most proud of is we've actually expanded our sidewalk system. It actually does kind of tie into running because it's expanded the walkability of the community because that's always been a priority of mine. We established a farmers market. So I wanted, when I first became part of city government, I wanted to have the ability for people that lived in town to walk or drive or bike to a market where they can buy fresh produce that's actually grown in the state of Tennessee. We've done that. And then we also, like I said, expanded sidewalks to make it a more walkable community so that, you can get from one end of town to the other end of town and you can do it on foot now. You don't have to get in your car. So those kind of things I think are important because one of the things that concerns me most and one of the reasons I try to involve myself in civic life is Tennessee is not a very healthy state in a lot of regards, and I think it's important for elected leaders to encourage healthy habits for people, and I've always
Yeah.
wanted to just kind of create fitness communities and that kind of thing here. So that's been an important thing for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, I used to live in a small town in Jamestown,
Yeah,
Tennessee, and that was a big issue was the walkability. Like they had some sidewalks in the town, and anybody that's been to the No Business Race has probably been through some of those areas. They were
yeah.
horrible sidewalks. Like you couldn't run or walk without tripping and breaking an ankle, basically. So that's awesome. Definitely improves the walkability and runability of the town. So that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Sounds like those were just trail running.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. It's like stepping over massive roots or something, It's just urban trail running. Yeah. Well, Tony, before we get into, this, definitely want to talk about an epic adventure you just did not too long ago.
Hmm.
Sounds like you kind of do some epic adventures probably once a year. It seems like from just being friends and following you on Facebook.
Yeah.
But before we get into all of that, I definitely want to hear kind of your running story, your journey. Like, how did you get into running, and then also what brought you into like the trail world?
Yeah. So, I think like a lot of people, we do start out running on the road and I probably, oh, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago, I probably started doing some road marathons. and or rode half marathons. Really, that's all I was doing, were half marathons. And I was really into it for a while, and then actually I did. I ran for office, and so I did a different kind of running, and I just kind of dropped it for a long time. And I'd say, oh, probably about 2016 or so, I was actually sitting at the desk. I'm sitting right here in my office and at our little business here, and I texted my wife Joy and I said, I'm going to enter a 25K. And that's how it started. I just one day I was like, I need to do something. I felt lazy. I felt pathetic. I felt like I wasn't living to my potential, and so I was just like, I'm gonna enter a 25K. So I entered the Music City Trail Ultra
Oh,
25K
nice.
that's held right in Pegram, Tennessee, about 5 minutes from where I am right now. And I ran
Oh,
that
wow.
first 25K. And then it just kind of took off from there. And then of course, you know how it goes. After you run a 25K, you got to run a
Yeah.
50K, and after you run a 50K, you got to run a 50 miler, and then you got to run a 100K, then you got to run a 100 miler, and it just keeps on escalating. Though I think I'm kind of capping it at 100. I'm not too sure about the 200 milers.
Yeah. Well, do you remember, it sounds like it was a while ago, but do you remember how that first trail race, the 25K went?
It was hard. It was hard. It's not an easy race really either. It's in the Cheatham County Wildlife Game Preserve area. John Harden, you probably know John. He does a lot of
Yeah,
races around here, and it's his race. It's a great race. He's actually about to bring a 100-mile race actually here to Cheatham County in that same area.
I saw that.
But it's not an easy race. It starts off running across his farm field into the preserve, and once you get there, there's a hill, the first hill you have to come to, and John lovingly calls it uh FTS hill, which is F that shit hill. Because it's really hard, and you
Nice.
can do that. But I made it through that race, and as we all go through those first trail races, you think a little ways into it, you're like, why did I do this? And then by the end of it, you're like, man, I'm never doing that again. And then by later that evening, you're like, all right, ultra signups on your magically appears on your computer screen. You're looking for the next one. So
Right. Now, is that FTS hill, is that the one in the pictures from the Music City Ultra that you see that looks like a power line cut,
it is. It is.
or is
Yeah.
that something
Actually,
different?
the
Okay.
one John usually uses is the backside of me climbing that hill. So that's me.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yeah,
And
no,
you
that's
said you start that race on the farm. Is that, like, the same area he holds the Black Toe Ultra?
so he has two farms. That one's actually out in Watertown, is where Blacktoe is, but he does have
Okay.
a 6, 12, and 24-hour race called Hail Mary that he does in July,
Oh,
that he holds out here. So
oof.
it's a 1 mile loop basically. He makes it a big party. I haven't had a chance to do it yet. I really want to. It's Hail Mary because it's hot as hell out. Is the idea. And
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and he,
July
but
in
John,
Tennessee, and that part of Tennessee is gonna be very
yeah.
hot and humid.
But John's really good about
Yeah.
making all of his races kind of a party. They're fun. Black Toe, you run Black Toe.
No, I never got the chance to. I've always heard it's very difficult, though.
Yeah, it's a fun race. We do the relay as a team every year, and we have a little team we call the Harpeth Hicks, and we uh, we we go out there. We set up a big group camp. We bring out our campers and camper vans and stuff like that, and we set up a big camp out there. And
Nice.
you start running, you taking turns running this 5 mile loop. It's got 1,000 feet of vert over 5 miles, and you do it for 24
Oh,
hours.
wow.
After it gets dark, they set up a really fun aid station on top of the hill. He does a really great race out there, and just has really developed a great trail running community in the Middle Tennessee area. So
I've always heard it's really difficult just mainly because, like you said, it's 1,000 feet and 5 miles, but also
yeah,
the weather. Like, I think it's in January or February, so it's cold, and
yeah.
it looks like it's usually muddy. Like, there's a lot of mud.
Oh yeah. I mean, so 2 years ago it started out. It was just beautiful out. It was like 50 degrees, 60 degrees during the day. And then about, midnight or so, 1 o'clock in the morning, a torrential downpour. And so the backside of that
Oh, no.
hill, you were just water skiing down it every single time you went down it. I mean, it was just rushing water right. So
Oh,
yeah,
man.
the conditions can be, it's kind of like Barkley, they do that in the spring in Tennessee because it's like the most unpredictable weather you can possibly have.
Right. Yeah, that sounds, very difficult.
Yeah.
And so after that first 25K that you did at the Music City Ultra, I did do some stalking on your ultra sign up and saw it looks like you ran quite a few 50Ks, 50 milers, but I do see one in here back that I wanted to ask you about. It was a 10K at 10,000 feet in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. What was were you out here for a vacation? Just happened to jump into that race, or how'd that come about?
Yeah, it was essentially I was just I love your new home state enough that I managed to make it there quite a lot, and I was in Colorado and I was like, hey, I want to run a race while I'm out there because we were planning the trip, and I convinced my wife to do the 5K and another friend of mine to do the 10K, and so we just all went out to Steamboat Springs, which is a fabulous place to spend a weekend, and ran a little 10K at 10K up there, and that was a lot of fun. It's I'd love to go out there and do Run Rabbit actually. So,
Yeah.
and
Definitely.
it's
That looks like a gorgeous race. Beautiful area. How did the altitude treat you? Was it I mean, do you remember? I know it's like 5, 6 years ago now, but how did that feel? Did you notice a change?
Oh yeah, that was my first go at kind of an altitude race. Subsequently I go out there quite a bit, and it gets a little easier every time. So Leadville, I was pretty, you know, used to the elevation at that point, or I knew what to expect at least. And as you know, I was out there just a few months ago, and I was climbing 14ers and just having a great time. And it didn't phase me a lot then, but that first time you get out there and you really get that thin air, it'll hit you. And I made it through, but it slowed me down a lot. I remember Joy was like, "Oh, I thought maybe your ego would get to you because like a lady like twice your age beat you," and I was like, "She lives out here." I'm not offended one bit at all. Good for her.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Yeah, so I guess how did your did so you followed that progression like you said you kind of went up slowly in distance before you got to the 100K, 100-mile distance?
Yeah, yeah, I did. I did. I think I actually probably I think I it, well, I haven't looked at my ultra sign up. I'm pretty sure I ran 100K before I ran a 50 miler, actually. I'm not positive about that. I'm trying to think back on races
It
I've
does
run
look
because I've
like that.
ran
Yeah, it looks like the
Stillhouse.
Bad Beard event, Stillhouse. Yeah,
Yeah.
100K.
Which is a great race. It's
Okay.
out in it starts in Saudi Daisy. If a lot of people around here probably have run Upchuck. It's a double Upchuck.
Mhm.
So you start there and
Oh,
Upchuck's
wow.
a point to point, but then what you do, you start at midnight and you run basically the upchuck course out, and then you get to the other end about the time the sun's coming up, and then you run it back in there. So it's a
Oh,
fun
cool.
race. It starts at midnight, for instance. That's kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah, that's unique. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. That's a whole nother level of difficulty there because I'm sure, usually you struggle to sleep the night before a race and maybe get a couple of hours, but a race that starts at midnight, you're probably getting no sleep at all and have been up
exactly.
for, 12, 18 hours.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It's a
crazy.
challenging race. But it's a good race. It's a very
Yeah.
challenging one though.
And then so was Leadville, was that your first 100 miler or was no business before that?
So I actually ran one other 100 miler that I did not finish. I failed at Leadville because of an injury. I made it
Right.
to half pipe, and that's where I dropped on inbound to half pipes, which is makes it even more disappointing. Uh, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
ran the Salt Flats 100, and I ran 50 miles of that in Utah. That's a race that's if you're into that, I'd say go for it. But it's just very exposed. You're running in the desert the entire time. There's the sun's there. It's in the high 80s, low 90s, just beating down on you all day. I made it 50 miles in that, and I was, I was shot. So I called that one. That would be one of.
Yeah.
I've had two DNFs, and that it would be Leadville and then that one. So
Yeah, I bet that Salt Flats race would be very, I mean, like you said, if you're running on the Salt Flats, there's literally no trees. I mean, there's no cover
no,
whatsoever. That had to have been just brutal.
they're on the back side of that race. So you run across the salt flats first, but then you just enter what is just desert, and then you enter what they call the mud flats.
Oh.
And when you're getting to the mud flats, that is first off, I mean, there's like it's almost cartoonishly perfect desert. There's like rusted out old cars from like the 40s, kind of half buried in sand out there, and the sagebrush just blowing across the trail, and those kind of things. And then you get to what's called the mud flats, and it's the best way I can describe it is when a mud puddle dries over on top, and then it's still
Oh
slippery
yeah,
mud underneath, but on top it's like just that kind of powdery dust. Well, imagine about
right.
2 to 3 inches of that powdery dust with the slippery mud underneath it, and then you get to run through that for, I don't know, like 15 miles. And there's one unmanned aid station that you can see almost from 15 miles away, and you're just dying for that water. And so that was actually the segment that once I got to the end of it, that was 50 miles, and I was like, I think I'm just not going to do this. So
Yeah, I'd say that sounds pretty miserable. It could make a lot of people probably want to quit. That
exactly,
type of
yeah,
mud is, like you said, it gets so slippery. It's
yeah.
just it's hard to, even with a very aggressive trail shoe. It's just there's no grip. So
There's
I
nothing.
couldn't
Yeah.
imagine. I would imagine it's probably a very hot race as well, wasn't it?
It was, it's hot, it's dry, and that's the other thing. And of course, you run into that a lot probably in Colorado running. In Tennessee,
Right.
when you're losing your fluids because they're stuck to your body. Uh, and
Yeah.
out west, and especially like out in a desert like that, you don't. I mean, the only way I can tell I'm losing my fluids is because I consume too much salt. Probably is like my clothes start to turn white, and that's where you know that like all that
Right.
salt, but everything just stays dry. So it's a difficult environment to run in. I mean, it's challenging in a lot of ways to run out in that kind of environment in a desert like that, because you've got the exposure, you've got the heat, and then you've got to be really careful about hydration because it's tricky in a lot of ways to just know how
Yeah.
badly dehydrated you're becoming. So yeah, I have much respect for people that run races out in the desert. I just it's not my thing, and I tried it, didn't like it, moved on.
Yeah. Yeah, it does give you probably a whole new respect for people that run races like Badwater, just
Yeah,
crazy hot, just on the pavement.
cannot
It's
imagine.
yeah, I think I'd probably more like you. It's probably not my jam. I'll stick to the mountains.
Exactly.
So after the salt, when was the Salt Flats?
Gosh, when was that? That would have been oh gosh, that would have been like maybe 2019, I think. I don't 2019. Yeah, what was maybe,
Okay.
or maybe it was 2021. Maybe it was 2020. I've forgotten, honestly. It's
Okay.
I'm getting too old.
And
But
then so yeah.
and then of course
And
I
then
did
you
Leadville, and then that
and
brought
that
me
was just
to
last year, right? 2023?
that was 2022. And then last year I did go out to
22.
Leadville
Oh.
to pace a friend, but I didn't run it. So that was
Oh, that's
2022.
right. I thought you were running last year. Okay.
Yeah. And then 2023 I ran
Okay.
no business. So
Okay. Well, how did the 2022 Leadville go? Obviously, you said you DNF'd at half pipe inbound, which, if I remember right, I think is mile 72-ish, somewhere around there, 72 to
yeah,
74. But how did the
you
rest of
know
the
it
race go for you?
it was going great. I mean, it did. Oh, I wouldn't say it went great. It actually kind of went bad from the beginning. Um, Honestly, what made that race, what I almost didn't make the cut almost into Twin Lakes the first time.
Oh, wow.
And um and yet by the time I was at half pipe, I was actually like well over an hour path ahead of the cut. I was way ahead of the cut. Um because I was able to do Hope really well. That Hope
Oh,
actually
good.
saved
Wow.
me, because I was able
Oh,
to do
wow.
it quite
That's
quickly,
rare.
and it was, in some ways that's kind of the best part of the race, I think. I really enjoyed it. It was, you've got that
Yeah.
real hard climb up, obviously, and that was fun. Like, yeah, weird things happened on that. Like a badger came out and like snarled at me and then kind of backed back into the shrubbery, and that was I was glad that it did that because it didn't look like a friendly creature.
Yeah.
Uh, and then you get to the little false summit, and there's the aid station, and then you push on through that, and then I just went as fast as I could down. And I got down there and I was
Oh,
still
wow.
chasing cutoffs by the time I made it to Winfield. And I got to Winfield and I realized I didn't have a headlamp with me because somehow it
Oh,
didn't get put
gosh.
in my thing, and it didn't get put in my pack, and I didn't have a headlamp. And I was like, well, and so I send a message on my inReach. I'm like, hey guys, I'm dropping. I don't have a headlamp. There's nothing I can do at this point. And then I just
Oh,
told
man.
somebody, I was telling somebody, one of the race people, I was like, I gotta drop, I don't have a headlamp. And some other guy was sitting next to me, is like, hey man, I'm not gonna go, here's my headlamp. And so I was like, all right, I
Oh,
guess I'm
wow.
going.
That's awesome.
uh so I did, I turned around, and then the cutoff queen, she's there, and she's yelling and cursing at me, telling me exactly what I need to do. And thank God for that lady, because she's great. And she's like, you've got to effing run right now. And she's like, when you got to run as fast as you can, when you hit those the rollers, they call them, she's like, you got to just go as fast as you can over the rollers, and then climb, and then once you get to the top, she's like, you just got to bust down that hill. And I did. So I remember running down that hill. I
Wow.
actually was so exhilarated by the point I got there. I got to the top, I drank some broth real quick, and then I just like took off down there. The guy's like, you're gonna have to be careful, you probably don't have time. He's like, there's lots of roots and rocks. And I was like, I'm from Tennessee, man, roots and rocks is all we got. So
Yeah.
so I'm going
You're like,
down,
"Bring it on."
and exactly. And these everyone else going down at this point is like kind of just giving up on life. They're like, oh, we're just gonna get back to Twin Lakes. I was like, no, we can get it, man. We can all get it. We're gonna go, we're gonna go, we're gonna go. And so I did. I ran through Twin Lakes. Everyone was like, you know how it is. Like running through Twin Lakes is phenomenal. And I was, still chasing
Yeah.
cutoffs to some degree there. I'd made quite a bit of time. Um, uh, so I didn't hear the school bell ring. Even I made it past before the school bell. I picked up my pacer though, and I just kept on booking it up to Mini Mount Albert. And I was passing everybody along the way up to Mini Mount Albert. But
Yeah, I bet.
yeah, I had a medical condition that was not going away. And by the time I got to half pipe, I was like, I just can't do it. So
Oh, man. Yeah, I was really surprised this year. So I just got back crewing, and me and, my friend Lee, we went out to the end of the Twin Lakes aid station area, like, facing Mount Hope, watching people come back in from descending inbound into Twin
yeah.
Lakes. And we were out there, it was dusk, it was getting dark, and there were so many runners coming in with no light source at all. We saw a couple people using, like, cell phones,
Oh my
and some people with no cell phone,
god.
no light whatsoever, and I was just blown away. I mean, it was literally probably 10 to 15 runners, in the time span that we were out there, that had no light, and I was just blown away because, like, I just remember, always have a spare headlamp in the bag just because, you never know how long it's gonna
Yeah.
take you, and so, yeah, I can't imagine being in Winfield like you were and, like, "I don't have a headlamp. I gotta," that's brutal. It's awesome
It,
that that guy,
it,
gave you his.
it taught me a valuable lesson, and anyone will ask you, like any of my friends, when we talk about this, the adventure we're going to talk about in a little bit. I travel everywhere now with like 5 headlamps. I'm just like, yeah, I got all the headlamps.
I bet you do.
I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not getting caught without one again. So
Lesson learned. Yeah, that's
exactly.
awesome though. So you DNF'd unfortunately at half pipe. And then that was 2022, and you said you came
Yep.
back in 23 to pace. I do remember seeing you there because I ran it.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
saw you
did your
run
runner
through, and
finish?
no, actually, Kevin had a very similar. He didn't finish. No, he it was his first thing. Kevin, awesome guy. He's like special forces sniper, retired. He's a
Oh, wow.
nationally ranked jujitsu fighter. Just really
Oh
awesome
my.
guy. And he just basically like, I mean, he's just got such an athletic base. He just took up ultra running like 8 months prior. Like he got into Leadville and it's like, all right, I'm doing it.
Oh wow.
So, and he ran a few like 100Ks and stuff out there in Colorado. He did great actually. But I don't want to say this because Kevin's probably going to
Uh.
listen. But he he's very military, so he's very regimented, and I think that maybe I think
Right,
maybe
right.
the planning was over planned, and I think that might have been his downfall in that
Uh,
race. But he didn't give up on
oh
ultra running.
no.
He's still running and jujitsu fighting at the same time and loving it. So
Yeah, I'm sure he learned some lessons. He's probably whatever it was, I'm sure he's never gonna do it again. Like you were always gonna have a
that's right.
headlamp now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, then if we fast forward to 2023 October, no business time, we both ran the race. Remember, we shared several miles together there at the
yeah,
beginning. I remember running along the Rock Creek section together for a while.
yeah.
And now, how did that race go for you?
That's a great race, I think. And I was actually listening to your last week's episode, and Brian that was on last week, he also had run it, and
Right.
you know, I can't say anything bad about that race. It's an excellent race. I preach the gospel of no
Yeah.
business everywhere because they just do such a good job.
They
It's
really do.
it's it's everything you would possibly want a race director to do. They do it. I mean, even like the meetings they have, online, they're like, what do you want at the aid stations for food? They actually ask that question, and they're like talking to every
Right.
individual runner. They're like, because we'll have it there, and it's just it's amazing.
Yeah.
So that was a great race. I was an all around just great experience. I didn't. I mean, it was hard. It was 100 miles, but it was about it was
Yeah, of
it
course.
was
Yeah.
so well done that it was made as pleasurable as running 100 miles could possibly be, I think. So I really enjoyed the race. So
Yeah. And so you finished in like 20, a little over 29 hours, right?
about 29, yeah. So and yeah,
Okay. Did
it
you have
was
a
it was
pacer at all for this race, or did you do it without a
I,
pacer?
I no pacer. This year I'm coming back with a pacer. Well, I kind of had a pacer. They'll at the for about 5 miles at the end, my wife kind of chugged along with me and listened to me ask if
Oh,
things
nice.
that weren't there were actually there. So, a
Little hallucinations. Yeah.
little bit. So,
Yeah. What was the
that's
craziest thing you saw?
well, I kept on seeing like modern architecture in the trees. I think that was kind of like my thing as I kept on seeing that. And then I was like, and then when I was with her at one point, I was like, are there like some guys sitting at a house on a porch up there? Like, because it looked like it could almost be in my mind. And she's like, no, Tony, that's definitely trees. And I was like, oh, okay, just checking.
That's funny.
So,
That's funny. Oh man. So you're coming back this year, you just mentioned, coming back to get that double buckle, I assume?
I'm coming back to get the double buckle this year. And hopefully got a little time off that. Got a little time off. That's kind of the goal. Uh, is to
Yeah.
to do a little faster and get the double buckle. So
Nice. The ultimate goal being that double buckle. As long as you finish, get it, knock it out,
that's
get
right.
that bigger buckle. That's yeah, a great race to do it. And I'll see you there. I'll be out crewing my wife, and Lee will be out there. You'll gosh, it's probably like a home race for you, basically, like it was for me. I'm sure you know just about everybody there, a lot of people.
Yeah. And I got to know Lee really well actually
Yeah.
at the training weekend last year. He's a great guy, so I enjoyed. I shared a few
Yeah.
miles with him last year, and it was a lot of fun. So,
Nice, nice. Well, I know you just completed a big adventure run.
hmm
It was the Wonderland Trail, right? I think that's what they call it, Wonderland Trail
yeah,
out around Mount Rainier, right? Mount Rainier?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I followed you on Facebook for a while. I think we first actually met, I want to say, at the Run for the Fallen in Tennessee. Did we meet before that, or was that the first time we met?
No, that was actually the first time I watched one of your videos, and it mentioned Run for the Fallen, and you were looking for runners, and so I sent you an email, and
Yeah.
then I got a few other friends, and actually subsequently Jack and I are doing run for the we do the run for the fallen now since
Yeah,
so this will be our
I
third
know.
year
That's
doing that.
awesome.
But yeah, no, it's been
Well,
that's a great thing too. But
I was gonna say, yeah, take a couple minutes to tell people what the run is, for those that don't know what the Run for the Fallen is.
yeah, so Run for the Fallen is done in, and I don't know how many states it is now. I think it's 15 states they're up to. I can't remember the exact number,
Yeah,
but
something like that.
you know, it focuses every mile. In Tennessee, it's 130 miles. We do 130 miles starting at Fort Campbell and ending at War Memorial Plaza in Nashville. The course along the way, every single mile you stop, and we honor you know, between 3 to 5 of Tennessee's fallen in the War on Terror. And of course, you know, it's done. We had, you know, the year you did it, the first year, and actually they're coming back. We had folks from Long Island that came out, and then of course we
Mhm.
have a fellow that was from Colorado, and now he lives in Florida, and he's coming back this year. He came back last year,
Oh, Mike?
and
Nice, that's
Mike,
awesome.
yeah, Mike's coming back again, and Mike and I still keep in touch quite a bit. And actually, Susan Warsaw, all those, you know, we all keep in touch because of it. So,
Yeah,
you know, the camaraderie that comes from that running event, I think, is just great. I mean, and we'll get in more into this later because that's just one of the wonderful things about running is the camaraderie that comes along with it. Um, but you know,
yeah.
it's just a really special event. You know, we've been able to bring in you know, with my limited political ties, we brought in some of the state legislators and stuff like that to
Oh,
do like
nice.
an official proclamation for the state, and do things like fly
Oh, wow,
the
that's
honor
awesome.
remember flag on the Capitol and things like that. You know, and it's just a special thing, especially when in that last mile when you're running into Nashville and everybody's running in together,
Yeah,
and you know, and then you have a little ceremony there. It's just it's a special event. Um, and you know, it really ties you together because, you know, I stay in contact with lots of people there. Actually, you know, one funny thing that happened is when I was in Leadville, when I was running Leadville, a fellow was wearing a Run for the Fallen shirt, and he's like, "I'm the run director
oh, nice.
for Indiana," and I was like, "Oh, I'm the run director for Tennessee," you know, and you know, you run into these folks. So it's a really good thing. And if you're in a state, if you're listening to this podcast and you're a state, you should go to Honor and Remember and see if there's a Run for the Fallen in your state and get involved. It's a really
Yeah,
special thing.
absolutely, yeah, it's a great mission to be a part of. You know, I did some of the America's Run for the Fallen, which was, I did 3 days in Tennessee, but that's the one that went all the way across America. And then I did the Tennessee one there, and then, Colorado last year. I was supposed to be run director, run captain this year as well, but with my injuries, I'm not able to, so I had to pass that off this year, unfortunately. But, yeah, like Tony said, if anyone is in a state, or even if you're not, because like Tony said, we had people, and he's got them coming back from New York, coming to run
Mhm.
in Tennessee to help honor that state's fallen military. And it's moving because, you know, these mile markers are all published on the website, and the Gold Star families will sometimes show up. And
Mhm.
if you don't know what a Gold Star family is, that's someone who has lost a loved one, in from the War on Terror, whether that be in action or from, you know, post traumatic stress. It doesn't matter, and they may show up and be there, and that's incredibly emotional.
Mhm.
Fighting back tears as a runner, you know, being there honoring this person, and it's just, I can't recommend being a part of it enough. If it's something you have any interested in doing, like Tony said, head to I think it's the runforthefallen.org, I believe, is the website. Go there. You can find all the states, be a part of it. Go to Tennessee, run with Tony, or come out here to
Absolutely.
Colorado and run with us as well. We got our run coming up September 15th, I think. Well, the Tennessee run's coming up as well, isn't it, very soon?
Yeah, it'll be. I think it's a week after that. Ours actually is very special because it falls on Gold Star Mother's Day, so we end it on Gold Star Mother's Day there.
Oh,
And like you
nice.
said, we've on our third year, and we have more and more Gold Star families coming out now for it. Now that people are starting to know that it's a thing that happens, and it's yeah, it's hard when, you know, it's a very emotional run. And it's a very
It
emotional
is.
time when the families are there. But you know, it also, it really, you know, you're doing something, you're doing the right thing when you're out there, because the just the emotions of the family, just knowing that people are out there remembering their loved one is so special. Sometimes it's their children. It's a
Yeah.
very, very good thing.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you're not running for yourself, you're running for somebody else, and it's not just tiring and exhausting because of the physical toll on your body from running. Often, as a core runner, you'll run maybe 20 miles a day,
Mhm.
which is pretty taxing on the road, but also it's mentally exhausting from an emotional standpoint, because it is emotional, and it does
Mhm.
bear a toll on the runner as well. But it's definitely something to be a part of. So
Yeah,
yeah, definitely reach out to Tony, myself, if you want to get involved in Tennessee or Colorado. Do a little
absolutely.
plug there. Yeah. So, anyway, the Wonderland Trail. Let's go there. Tell everybody how, it sounds like you've built this community of other like-minded people in your area, friends that you can do these awesome adventures with. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so well, I mean, I guess it kind of all starts with we have a running club here. We live in Cheatham County, and we have the South Cheatham Striders, and it's a community group. We've almost gotten to the point now where if you live in this area, you know, there's a pre-programmed run training program for you to participate in. And
Oh, wow.
this will lead to the adventure. But I mean, we have a Tuesday night run, we have Saturday long runs that are usually pretty well scheduled. We have a track day, and then we have a strength training day. And so if you do all of these
Oh,
things,
wow.
you can effectively be training for anything. And you've got this community of
Yeah, that's
runners that,
awesome.
that want to do it. Like I would say, I don't like being in group text messages, but we have a group text message that's got like probably 30 of these people that are the 30 people that run around here in it. And I love that group text message because they're all so excited about it. They want to get out, they want to make themselves better, they want to support their friends, they want to meet up and create different runs and stuff like that. And out of that grew doing some group adventures, and we've really only done two of these so far. Well, I'd say three because I might count Scar kind of as one too, and that's something we can do
Oh,
a little
yeah,
more
totally.
frequently because Scar is close. But there's some iconic trails in our national parks, and I would say Great Smoky National Park, like the iconic long thing you can do there would be Scar, which is the Smoky Challenge Adventure or Smoky, yeah, Challenge Adventure Run.
Smoky Challenge Adventure Run. Yep.
Which is the 73-ish miles of the Appalachian Trail that runs through Great Smoky Mountain National Park. So that's one we've done together as a group. And then 2 years ago, we did, and I think every ultra runner at some point wants to do this. We did rim to rim to rim, and so we went out
It's a bucket
to
list
the
for
Grand
sure.
Canyon. Yeah, have you done it?
No, unfortunately, I haven't. I was wanting to do it. I think it was, the year, 2020, COVID. We had a planned trip out there, and then obviously that all got canceled, but, at some point,
Yeah.
yeah, but let's go into that a little bit, your rim to rim experience. How did that go? Was it, logistically difficult to plan for a larger group to come?
It really wasn't. Well, I say that my wife Joy. This is definitely a plug for Joy. She's really good at it. She's really good at planning these runs. She knows she's on top of all the bureaucracy that surrounds doing things in national parks, and she knows like she has the timer set to get her campsites and her entry passes and all that stuff, so that she so
Nice.
so logistically for me it's super easy. Uh, for her probably not. So
Yeah,
I will say the hard
right.
work is being done on her end for sure. um so yeah, it was great trip. That one, what we did is we flew in. I had friends, in this case I had some friends from Florida that flew in too, and we all flew into Phoenix. We rented a 15 passenger van, and then
Oh,
we
wow.
drove it up to why can't I up to what's the not Sedona, Flagstaff. We drove over to Flagstaff, and we spent a day
Yeah.
up in Flagstaff, and did just some small hikes and stuff like that, and then we went on up to the Grand Canyon, and uh, uh, we started at about 4 in the morning at the South Kaibab Trail, and we ran it down. Made it to um, gosh, names of places or
Was it
some
Phantom
Phantom Ranch.
Ranch?
We made a Phantom Ranch at about sun up, I guess, as the
Yeah.
sun was starting to kind of come over, going through Phantom
Oh,
Ranch.
nice.
And then for me, it was the most difficult part for that was um, some members of our group had found out they had COVID, and I found out that I had COVID just a little ways past Phantom Ranch when I was trying to
Oh
keep up with a
no.
couple of my friends that were up front, and I was like, guys, I got to sit down. So I sat down, not prepared at all. I hadn't packed any kind of anything. Like I didn't have any painkillers of any kind. So I waited,
Oh
fortunately,
man.
for my good friend Jim Byhofer. You probably know Lauren, his wife, and you know Jim, I think.
I do, yeah.
And so Jim
Yeah.
Jim comes along, and I was like, Jim, do you have ibuprofen? And he did, and I was like, thank God, I'm gonna need that. And so I just kind of kept on taking ibuprofen, and we made it up to the North Rim, and it kind of kept everything at bay. And then came back up and climbed out uh, right around sunset. Actually, we made it out of there, and uh, we had, I think, 7 of us that went into the canyon that day, out of 10 people
Oh
total that
wow.
went. A couple of friends just kind of went for going to the Grand Canyon. And I mean, it's a phenomenal experience. It's a really great way to see the Grand Canyon. I mean, part of me would like to go back and maybe do it as a
Right.
multi-day. But then there's something to be said about doing it all in one day too, like just really getting to experience basically all the times of day in the Grand Canyon, because you start at 4 in the morning and you've got the
Yeah.
clearest skies possible, and you're in this like no. So I mean, you just turn off your headlamp and stare up, and it's the greatest
Oh, I bet
dark
that's
sky you've
amazing.
ever seen. And it's just a really great experience to do it, in a whole day like that, where you really get to experience a canyon in so many different ways, like what it's like at night. That last climb out
Yeah.
on uh, Bright Angel is,
Right
it's
Angel,
brutal.
yeah.
Yeah, so we went down Kaibab, up north Kaibab, and then back out and up Bright Angel. So that way you're able to cross both of the bridges and all that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
stop and have lemonade at Phantom Ranch on the way back and that kind of thing. So, uh, but
Was the
yeah,
lemonade
no,
as good as everybody says it is?
it's Minute Maid lemonade. So,
Uh,
but it's really good after you've been in the Grand Canyon a
so it's
long
nothing
time. So,
special. Yeah, exactly. It's got ice.
uh, so so yeah, no, it's a great experience. We had a really good time. Then of course we planned it out as a way, and this is really the best way to do it. And this is what we did at Wonderland too. Is then we went and spent the next couple days in Sedona just chilling out. So you gotta, like, you do something
Oh,
like
nice.
this, and then you have a couple days, and you find a really good place where you can just kind of relax and unwind. And for us, that was Sedona is a great place to relax and unwind. So
Yeah, it sounds like a perfect runcation, you get to go have a little bit of a getaway, vacation, be with friends, do something hard, and see a
yeah.
beautiful, just absolutely beautiful national park. Do you know do you remember or know, like, what were the temperatures in the canyon? Like, when you were crossing the canyon floor before you got to start ascending up the North Rim? Was it in the hundreds?
So no, because there's 2 times you should do this if you're gonna do this, and it's March and October. We did it in October.
Okay.
The hottest it really got was probably in the maybe high 70s. No, the weather was
Oh, wow, that's
fantastic. I
not
mean,
bad
it
at
was
all.
just, yeah, not bad at all. It was gorgeous. It started out actually very cold, because at 4 a.m. in
Yeah.
October at the Grand Canyon with no sunlight to heat the air and that dry air, it's very cold. So I started out in, like, leggings and gloves and a hat. And then, by the
Oh,
time you get
wow.
down to the bottom, so yeah, the weather was great. So
Yeah, because I think the South Rim is, like, it's over 7,000 feet up, isn't it? 'Cause I know the North Rim is higher.
the North Rim is higher. It's not quite that. I think it's actually five. It's a vertical mile. Um, on the south rim, and it's a vertical mile plus 1,000 feet on the north rim, and it's
Yeah, I know
about
I've seen plenty of pictures where there's
47.
been, like, snow on the North Rim.
Yeah, and that's actually was even in October. That's a possibility. There were still warnings as to whether or not to take your micro spikes and stuff like that. I ended up, like, last minute, I was like, I'm not
Oh, wow.
carrying this with me. So and there was no need for it. But uh you know it's
Yeah.
it's a yeah, the weather's actually gets quite cool by October though, because I've been there in October
Okay.
before when there was snow on the ground on the North Rim. So
And then so that was the 2023 adventure, and then this year you guys just got back from the Wonderland Trail. So was
yeah,
it the same group of people that went out, like the same group of friends?
pretty close to. A couple didn't come, but yeah, most of the core group of friends were the same ones that went to the Wonderland. And actually, that was 2022 that we did the Grand Canyon, and then we skipped
Oh, okay.
23, and then we did this 24 adventure. And we had basically the same group. It was a little bit different, dynamic. It wasn't a 1 day trip around the canyon. It was 3 days. We split it up. Um, but yeah, I mean, the Wonderland Trail is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I mean, the Grand Canyon's gorgeous, but not like Rainier. Rainier's probably my favorite national
Yeah.
park, and it's one of those things. The same thing with the Grand Canyon. You see the people running up the Grand Canyon. You're like, I have to get back and do that because I want to do that. And I've been to Rainier before, and I've seen people, hiking the Wonderland Trail, and I was like, I got to go run that trail. And then of course you watch the documentaries and stuff of people trying to break the
Right.
fastest
Yeah.
known time and all that kind of thing. So we got the group. We had 5 people that started out. Only 2 of us ended up finishing it through the third
Oh,
day,
wow.
um, which actually is really disappointing for them because the third leg of the trip is just probably the most stunning section. But yeah, it was the
Yeah.
same group essentially.
So what was the I've only seen, I think, maybe 2 documentaries on the Wonderland Trail, which I think one was by Ethan Newberry. I think it was, about, Gary Robbins' attempt, I believe, on the Wonderland, which was just a beautiful film. Highly recommend go watch that. But what, what's the altitude, like the elevation like there? Because I know it's like 93 miles, I believe, to
Mhm.
circumnavigate it. But what was the, like, total elevation gain for you over those 3 days? But then also, like, what was the highest point you got to?
So the highest point on the Wonderland Trail is not bad. It's only 6,750 feet. So
Okay.
because you're running along the lower level, you're running around the mountain, not up the
Right.
mountain. So there is something called the Infinity Loop, which actually is the Wonderland Trail with summiting the mountain twice. But
Oh, wow.
uh,
That's
but
awesome. I've
that
not heard of
that that
that.
would be takes some skills I don't yet have. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the trail itself is like you said, 93 miles around, but it's 26,000 feet of gain. And for some
Oh, wow.
perspective, on
That's
that
significant.
first day, your was 34 miles. So we ran from the national park inn. We got there on a Saturday. We spent the night at the national park inn there, and that's kind of always the historic official start for the Wonderland Trail, is also from the national park trail or inn.
Okay.
And the first day was from national park inn to Mowich Lake campground. And of course, the way this was set up, my wife had got the campgrounds all set up. So she already, when everyone arrived at Mowich Lake, we had camp set up and food cooked and all those kind of good things. So that
Oh,
makes it a
man.
much more pleasant adventure. And so we did that. But on that first day, you're doing 34 miles, and it's 34 miles with about 12,000 feet of gain. So, you can imagine
Oh,
it's
wow.
imagine a 50K with no business elevation gain, and that's what you would have there. So it's a
Yeah, I
pretty
mean, that's
intense
like the
climbing.
Barkley Fall Classic, except it's all on trail.
Yeah. So a little easier, and the trails out there are great. They're really well maintained for the most part. There's a few places where because I mean, just because of the nature of the mountain and all the trails, they wash
Right.
out. There's rock slides, those kind of things that'll destroy trail, and we actually had to deal with a rock slide on the last day. Um, a pre-existing rock slide, but it made the trail more difficult. So yeah, that was the first
Okay.
day, and then the second day was about a 26 mile from Mowich Lake to White River Campground, and and then the third day was about another 34 miles, I believe it was, from White River back around to the national park inn, and that took you through like the Summerland area and stuff like that. It's the beauty of the trail It's called the Wonderland Trail for a reason because there are parts where you're in these alpine meadows, and aside from the biting flies, uh, I told people when I crossed some of the bridges, if a fairy or a troll or a gnome popped out, I wouldn't have been surprised. It's like the wildflowers in August there are just amazing. It looks like you're in a place that isn't real. And then of course
Wow.
you've got Mount Rainier just looming over you the whole time. And then there's sections where, on the trail where you run past Carbon Glacier and,
Oh my.
the just really seeing like a glacier from that level. I've seen them from like higher above and stuff like that, but just seeing that massive sheer piece of ice with rock on top of it and the rushing water that actually forms the Carbon River. 5 rivers actually originate from that mountain, from the glaciers on that
Oh
mountain.
wow. I didn't know
So
that.
and there. I believe there's 15 glaciers that's around Mount Rainier.
Oh wow.
It's still an active volcano. So some say on a timeline, of course, those timelines are very big. It's the most dangerous mountain in America because it's the one that would be most likely to erupt. It's on like
Oh
it
wow.
erupts about every 250,000 years, and it's been about 250,000 years, I guess.
So they say
um,
we're due. We're due for an eruption.
we're possibly due. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's amazing.
So what
But
of the 3 days, I mean, you've got some pretty big days. I mean, 34, 26, and 34 miles. Which day was the most difficult?
I would say day one actually was the most difficult, and that was just because of the sheer magnitude of the climbing on that day. Because 20 close to half of the climbing happens on the first day, so that
Yeah, that's a
makes it
lot of
pretty
climbing.
tough. And the hills there are kind of like some of the ones on Scar, the ones where you're looking at Climb Pro on your watch, and it's like, oh, this is a 23% grade, and you look down, it's like, and it's going to last 4 miles. Okay. Uh, so and so just kind of grin and bear and just look down at your feet a lot of times then, and just kind of have to just
Yeah,
suck it up and just keep on putting one foot in front of the other going up those climbs like
just do the
that.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
But it's such a beautiful place.
so which day was I guess the most rewarding or the most beautiful? Was that the 3rd day, it sounds like you said?
The third day, you start out. We start out from the White River campground, and yeah, it's by far the most beautiful day. You end up in like just the area that's called Summerland, and Summerland is just this really beautiful like alpine meadow area with, you know, there's pikas out playing, and there's marmots everywhere, and the wildflowers are beautiful. And then that leads you down into Indian Bar, which is even a more beautiful alpine meadow. And then once you get past Indian Bar, there's points where you can look to your left and there's Mount St. Helen, and you look to your right and there's Mount Rainier. I have a frame where I did just
Oh,
a very
wow.
short panoramic, and I've got both mountains in the frame. So it's just
That's awesome.
stunning out there. So that was. And then
So no, I was gonna say, so you mentioned marmots, you saw them playing, which I find interesting because here in Colorado, we don't see marmots unless you're above, like, 12,000 feet in the true alpine. So, like,
yeah.
what level out there is, like, tree line? You weren't above tree line at all, were you? I'm assuming?
Well, a lot of it just is like kind of meadowland like that, because you don't like in Colorado also you don't. And I was surprised about that because at first I didn't believe I was seeing pikas, but then I've subsequently been on Mount Rainier's like on their just Instagram page, and they talk about how you'll see the pikas out there,
Uh-huh.
because pikas usually don't you don't they're not they're an above tree line, usually
Right.
10,000 foot creature. The first time I ever saw a pika was climbing to the top of oh Tories, I think, and I saw them like once
Oh,
you get up
cool.
to like
Okay.
10,000 feet. Um,
Yeah.
and out there for whatever reason they're at lower elevation. And
Huh.
I don't know why, but yeah, there's plenty of marmots out there as well. I mean, I've got pictures of quite a few of them.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess it's the latitude because they are, I mean, Rainier is higher up as far as,
yeah.
latitude-wise throughout in our country, so maybe that has to do. I don't know, that's cool. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Well,
prominent I mean, that's what makes Mount
it
Rainier so
sounds
special is
like
the prominence, so
yeah, exactly. I mean, just I've never been and seen it in person. I've seen Rainier from an airplane, and you can see it sticking above the clouds. But I can
yeah,
only imagine just seeing how much of that mountain sticks up above just everything else. It's got to be just completely breathtaking.
it is.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, it sounds like your wife, Joy, needs to start a business. Like, she needs to run a travel agency business for, like, people that wanna do fast packing or, like, ultra running, kinda like these, what is it, Vagabond Trails is one of those ones out there that does
Yeah.
this for you, but it kinda sounds like Joy needs to start one.
Now, I mean, I always joke that I don't joke, I always tell her the same thing. I was like, "You're really good at this." I mean, for all of my ultra running, I always say I'm just kind of the meat that moves along the trail, and then, like, all the brain is over there. So yeah,
Yeah,
she's really good at
that's
planning
great.
stuff like that. I think actually because one of the things, of course, it was a Cumberland Transit summer ambassadorship that we did this year, and I think they're actually going to have Joy do a little short seminar on how to plan a group adventure because she's really
Oh,
good at
nice.
it.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. Well, what's next for the South Cheatham Striders or just your group of friends that's, goes on these
yeah.
adventure runs? Do you have one planned already for the next year?
Oh yeah. Well, we've got a couple things kind of on simmering right now. And they probably will be a little bit sooner. One of our group, of course, is one of our group is married to a Canadian and Emma, and she's wonderful. And her uncle has a house in Banff, so we may be
Oh,
doing
cool.
something similar in Banff. And Probably the next adventure though is going to be not running. It's going to be running adjacent. We're going to go out to Oregon and climb Mount Hood, and then we're going to go up to uh, Washington and do Mount Adams on a trip. So it'll be
Oh,
mountaineering
wow.
instead of running, but a similar type adventure. It's a lot of
Yeah.
it is a lot of fun to travel with some like-minded people that want to just go out and have fun in the mountains.
Yeah. I think you made a Facebook post. It's probably been a couple of weeks, maybe a month ago, but I think there was a picture of somebody, like, standing on maybe a bridge or with something, and I think you said something along the lines of, "Find friends that are dumb enough to do the kind of things you wanna do," or something like that, and I was
Yeah,
just like, "That's so true."
yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah. You gotta find
it's
those
important
people
to
that
have
are
that group of
crazy,
friends.
and it sounds like you've built quite a community there with the run club and then now kind of branching off to your adventure club or, whatever you wanna call it, but that's awesome.
Yeah, no, and we have another plan to. We'd like to go down and climb Chimborazo in Ecuador, which is another
Not heard of
possible
that.
adventure. So Chimborazo is an interesting one because while Mount Everest is the tallest mountain in the world, Chimborazo is the furthest from the center of the Earth, if that makes sense.
Oh,
Because when
interesting.
the Earth spins, of
Okay.
course, it's actually an oval, not a ball. And because it's on the equator, it's actually Chimborazo is actually pushed out further from the Earth by virtue of the spinning of the rotation of the Earth, and it actually makes it
Huh.
so you're further as far out into space as you possibly can be on planet Earth, but it's a much more manageable,
Oh,
safe
wow.
adventure than Everest and less expensive.
That's really cool.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
another
you don't
another
have
potential thing. That's
right. You don't wanna
it's
drop
all about
$120,000 to go summit Everest.
yeah, but it's all about it's
What
all about
how
the
tall is
adventures and
Chirazo?
it's 21,000, I believe.
Oh my gosh. Wow,
Yeah.
I had no idea it was that tall. Jeez.
So yeah,
So
it, it's
what is the base elevation, like, where you start your climb?
I'm not positive. The adventure really actually because the more famous mountain because there's a brand named after it now is that's right next to it is Cotopaxi. And
Okay.
Cotopaxi's, I believe it's just shy of 20,000 feet. So what we would do would probably be over 2 weeks, and it would include climbing both Cotopaxi and Chimborazo
I
for
imagine you would have
hiking.
to have like an acclimatization period where you kind of go up to
Yeah.
certain elevations and then go up higher, I imagine.
Yeah, and in this case, we're looking into using a guide company that does that. Essentially, you'll start out at like 13,000, then you'll do a 15, an 18, a 19, and then 21,000. So
It's so crazy to think of like a hike starting at 13,000 feet.
yeah, yeah. You know,
That sounds like an epic.
well,
Yeah.
when I go to Colorado, the first time I ever made on top of one of your 14ers out there, you get up there and you're like, man, I just want to see what it looks like from even higher than this. Every single time I'm out there, it's such a beautiful place. I'm jealous of where you get to call home.
It is beautiful, but, yeah, those 14ers are epic for sure. Do you have plans to come back out and climb some more?
Oh, out in Colorado? You know, I
Yeah.
I don't. I do. I think I probably won't make it out there. In 2026, I'd like to go out there and redeem myself at Leadville. So that's probably the next time I'm coming to Colorado is to go make up for
Yeah.
my DNF there. So
Well, you should probably come out in 2025 then and volunteer to get hours because it sounded like you pretty much have to have volunteer hours to get in just about nowadays.
oh really?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah, that or
Yeah, I
do
got
a charity entry. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions here. I always like to do some rapid fire things, but before we get to the rapid fire, I asked ChatGPT to give me some entertaining uh, questions for a podcast about trail and ultra running. So this they actually came up with some good ones. I'm not going to go through all of them, but just a couple here. What's the most bizarre thing that you've seen or experienced? Now I'll change this a little bit because it says during a race, but let's say during a race or adventure run.
Hmm. I guess the most surreal thing would probably be at Leadville. It would be during a race when that you're I was hauling up Hope Pass and it was almost like a cartoon. It was almost like where Homer Simpson like fades into the bushes, but the other way when the badger kind of poked its way out and it was growling or making its noises at me and I could see its teeth and then it just kind of like faded back into the bush and I was like, so that was probably I'm pretty positive it was real. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't.
I love the
Uh,
description of, like, Homer Simpson into the bush, that's awesome.
yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
man. Let's see here, let me skip through a couple of these. Here's a funny one. What's the strangest thing you've ever packed in a drop bag?
oh gosh. Probably, I don't know that I've ever packed anything that exciting in a drop bag. I mean, maybe like my impact massager, so that's not super exciting.
So not like,
Yeah.
put, like, a beer in there or something or, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I have not.
Um
So yeah.
Now here's one that I'm genuinely curious for your answer here, and again, this is from ChatGPT. If you could go on a trail run with any historical figure, dead or alive, who would it be?
So yeah, I listened to your previous podcast and I knew this one was coming and
Okay.
I couldn't think of anybody.
No? 'Cause I know
Well, I'm curious.
you're a pretty
Did
voracious
did you
reader
have
as
one?
well, I believe.
Who would you choose?
No, it's tough. I don't know. I really don't. There's so many people out there I'd love to go on a run with. It's hard to nail it down to like just one. You could go totally historical and go somebody that's been dead for a while, but also one of your like heroes nowadays.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
difficult one. It's
I
tough.
don't know. I'm not positive about that one.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go on to some rapid fire then. You're familiar with these then, since you listened to a couple of the episodes. We'll start with what's your favorite trail snack, whether that's on an adventure run or a race.
Oh, that's probably Sour Patch Kid watermelons.
Okay. Yeah, those are
I
tasty.
I
That's a good
feel a
one.
lot of races on those. Yeah.
So then are you a morning run or an evening run kind of guy?
I am an evening to night run person. Actually, I love running in the dark. Honest, like we were talking about Stillhouse. I loved the midnight
Right.
start. That would be if everybody started their races at midnight, I'd be on board for it. So,
Yeah, that brings up a good point. I think I first ran at night during a Ragnar relay. It was a road, but then I remember specifically the trail. There's a Ragnar Trail. I think I did Kentuckiana,
Yeah.
maybe in 2019, and running at night. And I was like, all the people were like going so much slower during the nighttime, which is understandable because you got rocks and roots. It's harder to see, but I don't know if I just had a better headlamp, but I just felt like my pace didn't drop and I could just kind of flow through the night because it was more. Maybe I was more intently focused on the trail instead of my surroundings because it was dark and I only had the headlamp to see. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just weird.
No, I think there's something there because when you're running at night, you can like, and I don't even like to have a lot of headlamp going. I just want to like, because the only knowledge you need when you're running at night is where your foot's going to hit next. That's it. And everything else, it just kind of fades
Exactly.
away and you
Yep.
just get in a flow state and go.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this one I'd be curious about because you've done some pretty bucket list items. So, what's your bucket list race?
Oh, I don't know. Probably, probably Wasatch, I think. I think I
Okay.
would like to run Wasatch. Yeah, and mainly
Yeah, that's a beautiful
because I
course.
like, yeah, and I haven't spent enough time in the Wasatch Mountains in that part of Utah, but I've spent enough time there to know I really like it, and so I think I'd like to run that race.
Okay. All right. That's a good one. That's a good one. Do you have a running pet peeve, like something that just really drives you wild if you see somebody do it or hear somebody, what maybe something that just drives you crazy?
I think like just general, and I shouldn't be like this, but just I think my pet peeve is when I'm running and then there's like a gaggle of people just like blocking the entire trail, and then
Yes.
or my other pet peeve 100% is in the same vein when there's like a bridge in a park that you're trail running in, and people think like that's a great place to just set up a picnic. I was like, these are the places we walk. So I think it's like blocking the flow of traffic is probably my biggest pet
Yes.
peeve.
Yeah. I'll say, like, here in Colorado, we have a lot of, like, greenways in Colorado Springs, and they're not small greenways. I mean, they're probably 10 to 14 feet wide in places, like, crazy, very wide, and that drives me insane. You'll be running or cycling, and there's, like, a group of 4 people walking side by side with, like, 2 feet between each of them, but not enough for you to run through, and it's like, you gotta come up behind them and, like, "On your left!" It's just, "Come
Yeah.
on now, have some consideration, people."
uh,
So what's your favorite season to run in?
Winter. I like
Winter,
the cold.
okay. Is that just because of Tennessee winter or
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think the best temperature. The best temperatures to run in, I think, are between 30 degrees and 50 degrees. I just like that. I like that good, crisp,
Yes.
cool run. Like once you go under 30 degrees, and it's doable, and I don't mind doing it, but that's a little less pleasant. But yeah, that 30-degree to 50-degree range is just where I want to be.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's perfect temperatures, and so you should have some of that at No Business coming up.
That's what I'm hoping for.
The
Last
night
year
times
was
always
really
get
good,
chilly.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, last year was great, really. It was perfect temperatures. I remember in 2020, the night was very cold. It got into, I think, like high 20s or low 30s, and it was very cold. Just being calorie depleted and exhausted. My
yeah.
body was like shivering at times. So hopefully you won't have that this year.
Is that the year it rained?
Yeah. Um, no, I think that was 2021,
Okay,
maybe. Because yeah, I can't remember. I know 21 Lee ran. I crewed him. I don't know if it rained then or not, honestly. I can't remember when it was, but yeah, I know one of the years it did rain pretty good.
yeah. That's my least favorite. Like if you're gonna get precipitation, I do like the cold running, but the worst is like when it's 33 degrees out and raining. So yeah, if
Oh
you're
my
gonna get
gosh, yes.
precipitation, you need to just go ahead and skip on to snow. I think. So,
Yes. Yeah, there's nothing worse than running in like 30 to 40 degrees when it's raining. That's just
yeah,
so miserable. Your bones get chilled and yeah, that no thank you. Turn to snow, please. Turn to snow.
exactly.
Well, Tony, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a really fun chat, getting to catch up with you a little bit. Haven't
Yeah,
talked with you in a little while. I guess since you were last out here in Colorado, we were texting a little bit, but I've enjoyed following your adventures and seeing all these trips you've been going on. I can't wait to follow and see what it is you guys do next, especially when you go down to I forget the name of it already, Chirazo or
Chimborazo, yeah, in
something like that.
Ecuador, Ecuador, yeah,
Timburazo. Chimborazo. Okay.
CH, yeah.
Oh, CH. Oh, okay. Chimborazo. Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, definitely look forward to seeing you two at No Business. We'll be out there, Thursday at Pack a Pickup, and then race day, of course. We'll see you and cheer you on. And are you going to have, I'm assuming, is Joy crewing again?
Yeah, Joy's crewing, and one of my local run club guys, he's going to come out and pace me. And yeah, it should be a good time. Like that's the other good thing about having a local running club is now we have pacers. We go out to races. We fly all over the country together for races and help each other out. So it's a lot of fun.
I got to tell one story real quick before we end and brag on your wife here. This is from Run for the Fallen in Tennessee, where we first met. It was maybe day 2, or I think it was day 2 of the run. And I know Tony and myself, and I feel like there's maybe one other runner that were vegan or plant-based.
Yeah.
And they had a dinner that night where there was nothing that we could eat. Unfortunately, they were very, gracious and courteous about, trying to provide things, but unfortunately, nothing that we really wanted to eat with our diets at that time. And Tony's wife, they lived pretty near the course. She brought us to the hotel. She brought us like a big bowl of this amazing, like literally so good chili that she made, and like chips and avocado or guacamole there with it. And we just pigged out in the hotel breakfast area at like 9 o'clock at night and just ate this amazing chili. And then I think I reached out to you afterwards, and you actually sent us the recipe, and we still make that chili. It's so good. So, Joy, you saved our day there on Run for the Fallen.
You're not the only ones. Actually, the folks from Long Island, they still make the chili as well, and I get a text message every time, we're having Joy's chili tonight. So.
Yep, it's so good. It's so good. Well, thank you, Tony. It has been awesome catching up, chatting with you. I look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks at No Business,
All right.
and just following along your continued adventures. So appreciate you coming on, man. Hope you have a good one.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a nice day.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Adventure Jogger, please consider joining our Patreon, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok for more content like this. Without your continued support, we would not be able to produce this type of content. So thank you so much to everyone that has listened, followed along, subscribed, liked, commented, you name it, donated on Patreon. Thank you.